Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the February meeting of the Metro North Long Island Committee. We have two public speakers this morning. Mr. Orrin Getz will start us off.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board. My name is Orrin Getz, and I ride the Pascack Valley line of Metro North. On February 8, 2012, I attended the New Jersey Transit Board meeting, and I asked them to look into and consider some changes on the Pascack Valley line scheduling. And that is that to provide early service on Good Friday, which is also the start of Passover, on April 6, 2012, and on the eve of Yom Kippur on September 25th of 2012. The idea is to take train 9653 and operate it all the way to Spring Valley instead of operating train 1653, which only goes as far as Anderson Street. I also requested that New Jersey Transit consider reinstating train 1600 on the Pascack Valley line so that morning service would provide the ability of passengers getting into New York City, into Manhattan, by 7 o'clock. In addition, I asked New Jersey Transit to consider operating train 9653 all the year because there's a gap in the afternoon schedule, a 2-hour gap, and that would fill it. I was pleasantly surprised to find out that Mr. Bruce Mizell, who is the vice chairman of New Jersey Transit, confirmed that these were good ideas and should be implemented. And I'm requesting that that Metro North work with New Jersey Transit on these issues and see that it can be done. Please understand that Rockland County is severely shortchanged by the MTA, and the cost of making these minor schedule improvements is minuscule in the MTA's operating budget, and therefore it would be a good idea to implement as soon as possible. In addition, I saw the plans for the new Nanuet Mall, which is adjoins the Pascack Valley line near the Nanuet station. They're going to tear down the old mall and build a new mall. And it would be a great idea if Metro North could work with the developer Simon's Properties and work with the town of Clarkstown to see that a connection to the Pascack Valley line train station at Nanuet would be available to boost service on the Pascack Valley line. One other final thing. Mr. Mizell was also concerned about the ridership levels on the Pascack Valley line over the weekends. And I'm requesting that Metro North get together with New Jersey Transit to see how this weekend service on the Pascack Valley line can be promoted to make sure that New Jersey Transit considers it a worthwhile operation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
If I could, Howard, is it to be expected that those what sound like constructive suggestions will be responded to?
Yes, Jim. We'll follow up on what Orrin laid out. I will point out some of what was talked about in terms of service restoration goes back to the service reductions that were made 2 years ago as part of our budget balancing. Some of the other suggestions are different, and we'll be looking at both of them.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Bowden, already at the microphone. Thank you.
Good morning. Leadership starts around this table. If you don't lead correctly, nobody out there is going to follow. This is the committee report for today. Completely useless when I went to read it on my computer or iPad. Unless the people sitting around this table, and especially, good morning, Mitch.
Good morning.
I'm talking to you in particular because you're sitting up there as the chair this morning, and until you put a computer in front of you at every one of these board meetings, there's no reason for them to do it. Your leadership. I've got my iPad with me this morning.
As I have mine. And I read it over the weekend on my iPad.
Could you get...
I did it.
Wait a minute. Here, we've begun to see them at the meetings.
I have it right here.
No, it should be in front of you so they see it. The message is, we're changing. He's got a computer in front of him. He's got one. Michael's got one. The change got to come from you. I have 9 meetings this week to do the same stupid presentation. Tomorrow is the New Jersey Turnpike. Wednesday is the board here. Thursday is NIMTIC's manual meeting. Friday is the New York State Thruway. And the message is exactly the same to every one of the boards. Until everybody on the board has a computer in front of them, they're not going to do it. It's going right around. Because the problem is communication. There's no way that what you put online can be useful. It has to be hyperlinked. And it's not. It's a PDF. Well, that's where we start, at the top. This is the subway one that I used, that I downloaded. I can zoom it and get it to my station. I had to use it last Thursday because I was with my granddaughter, and we started at 86th Street, and we had to go to Bowling Green, and I don't use the subway that much. I put this on my phone because I also have it on my phone, found where Bowling Green was. We spent the day together. We went on a Staten Island ferry. And we had a great time. That's the way we're going. You shut down to do the track work, but until this board does it, they're not going to do it. So it starts with you, Mitch. And I'm using first names because at the Port Authority meeting last week when I spoke about the iPad, the vice chair took on one of my remarks and he said, you know, as Murray said, so this is about changing the culture. The formality is going out. Chief, back to your coming in a suit. Only because it changes the dynamics. We have to change the way we think about it. You want it? Oh. There is no way we can communicate with you. I've asked to meet with Howard or somebody on his staff, and I don't get there. This is the only opportunity I have to say that. And it's well aware that I'm prepared to get arrested today because you couldn't do anything better than arrest me. Because I've been arrested by the MTA before, and a judge said eventually, Mr. Bowden, we like what you're doing. Continue with case dismissed. This is about changing the dynamics. Howard, what happened in the past is the past. I want to go forward. I want to meet with you or your staff. What happened in the past is what I said at the Port Authority. We got to go forward. They had an audit they had to get passed. That was the last generation. No, I'm not finished. I will not convert it. And you want to carry me out, you're going to have to carry me out today. I am here to create a disturbance. It's going to take 2 of you. No, I'm not going until I'm ready.
Then you're not going to be able to give your comments to the other meetings.
I won't?
No, you won't.
What are you going to do, carry me out with it?
You'll be banned.
This is an example of how we have to change.
Come on, Murray. Come on. Come on.
It's a setup.
Murray.
I planned it.
Murray, come on. Thank you.
It's always nice to know he's achieved his goal, I guess, in that context. But we have moved forward because for now all of the books come by computer. So we are making small progress, and I read them over the weekend on my iPad, and I assume some other members of the board do it the same way in that regard. So for MTA, we're moving in a strong pace in that regard, and I assume sooner or later we'll have it. Okay. All right. Approval of the minutes of January 23rd. Any changes? All in favor? Okay. 2012 work plan. Is there any change to the work plan? No change? No change to the work plan. Okay. Agency president's reports. Helena starts this month.
Okay, good morning. I'm pleased to report that the agency heads and Chairman Joe Loda, Chief Operating Officer Nuria Fernandez, participated in a 2-day transportation advocacy effort in Albany. We started with a rally in the Legislative Office Building. We had participation by all of our key players in transportation, including the New York Public Transit Association, Karen Ray, the Deputy Secretary. The event was hosted by both Joe Loda and Carmen Basili of the head of the NIPTA, New York Public Transportation Association, and the Albany Transportation System. It was an effort to really get out there and talk to all of our legislative leaders and elected officials about the need to move forward on the MTA capital program. I am pleased to say that, with all the agency heads working in coordination, we covered, almost 100 different legislators. There was a letter that was signed by about 40 assembly members to the assembly speaker, asking that they move forward on a budget process that includes the capital program funding, a $700 million appropriation, and a bond cap increase that will allow our program to go forward. So we thought it was a very successful two-day effort, and it's one that I know all of the agency heads will stay with. On a separate note about advocacy, I'd like to recognize the efforts of Mark Epstein, who's head of our Long Island Railroad Commuter Council. He organized councils across the United States to advocate for the federal pre-tax transit credit to be restored at its prior higher level. And he did a great job of getting really widespread cooperation from commuter councils, and they spent a day in Washington as well as a letter campaign. Finally, I want to note a topic that we've been, bringing this board up to date on many occasions. The current legislation in the House and the Senate for a transportation reauthorization bill is talking about the positive train control deadline. And the House bill, has one approach. The Senate bill has another. David Garden, who is on the MTA staff as our federal liaison, has been working very hard to advocate on behalf of both Metro North and Long Island Railroad that we get our solid extension of time in which to comply with the legislation. Again, I always want to emphasize, while we very much support the safety aspects of PTC, the legislation itself is very flawed with a deadline of 2015. And there is broad recognition that neither commuter rail nor freights can actually meet that deadline. So we're watching very carefully how the House and the Senate approach this issue, and we'll watch a reconciliation bill. I want to pause for a moment and talk about ridership growth on the Long Island Railroad. For the 5th consecutive month, overall Long Island Railroad ridership trended in a positive direction. In fact, the January ridership numbers indicated the highest growth since February 2008. We saw a 6.4% increase in overall monthly ridership, with monthly and weekly ridership up 2.8% and non-commutation ridership up 12.3%. I want to note, of course, the outstanding Giants victory in the Super Bowl and the resulting parade in the Canyon of Heroes on February 7th. I think, Howard will mention as well, we all experienced tremendous ridership that day. It was, if you recall, beautiful weather. We did a count of just the and we tried to do an actual count between 12 and 4 o'clock, the Penn departures. And they were 33,740, roughly, Penn departures. We normally have about 14,000 during that time period. So you can see we were over double that day. And I have to say, from early morning, the trains were crowded with lots of blue shirts. It really was a wonderful day. A lot of families out celebrating the Giants' victory. Finally, I want to note that we included in both committee reports, we have our annual operating report. And the Long Island's annual operating report appears on page 62. And we are very proud to note that we improved our on-time performance in 2011 by almost a full point, going to 93.7 from the year before, where we were at 92.7. Our team at the Long Island Railroad remains very focused on improving our on-time performance, and we've made a concerted effort in a number of areas to make improvements. One of those areas is scheduled track work, where we're trying very hard to ensure that we get the track work that we need to get done. We recognize, of course, how important that is to overall reliability, but we're trying to decrease the number of times that scheduled track work impedes a peak hour service. We're also doing an analysis of incidents that have caused 5 or more delays and trying to focus specifically on Herald and Jamaica and what we can do to ensure we mitigate any service delays that impact our on-time performance. One of the things that has just been, a tremendous contribution, of course, has been our fleet reliability. And I want to, just note for a moment something we don't often get, was just a wonderful cover story in Newsday that recognized our record mean distance between failures at 169,000 miles. I made a visit over to Hillside, our big maintenance facility, and recognized each of the shops and what they've done to contribute to really an outstanding performance in the fleet during the past year. So it's my thanks to the workforce. They've just done an outstanding job of maintaining the M7 fleet, the M3 fleet, and the diesel fleet. Finally, we are moving to phase 2 of our Nokia pilot. As you recall, the Nokia pilot is the near-field communication technology that's in phones and can be used for future ticketing options. We did a little test. The first phase was just making sure you could tap in and out. The second phase will involve some 20 employees who will continue to test the program by actually having a trip simulation. And it will enable us to verify that the tap in is tied to a specific account. And then in June, we get to about 100 Port Washington customers, actual customers, who will participate in the testing of that technology. And that concludes our report.
Any questions for Helena? Chuck?
Let me start with, in the order in which you made the presentation, on the subject of PTC extension. Are you comfortable that further extension of compliance will not leave us or the riders exposed to safety hazards, bearing in mind what's happened in South America and in other countries recently in terms of crashes that have occurred, one in a station and one out there? I just want to be sure
Yes.
that the public can be assured that by doing this, we are not putting them at any kind of risk.
I think that that's a very key discussion that is going on. We look at the pictures of those horrible accidents. I want to give this committee and our customers great assurance that we have highly developed technology we're already using. We have automatic speed control that is in our system now, and about 70% of my system is covered. I think even more of Howard's is covered. The highest density of our service is all covered. It is only, the areas where we have much less train service that isn't currently covered by automatic speed control. That will drop the speed of the train automatically and go into an emergency brake application if needed. If we have overspeed activity on our system. And if our, of course, major concern is we want to ensure, compliance with all of our operating rules. So we feel that the extension of time will be balanced by the fact that we already have cab control and automatic speed control right in our equipment, plus the emphasis we always make on our operating rules. Howard,
Let me
you
just
should
add
speak to Metro North.
Yeah, to add to that, I think we have to go back to something Helena mentioned in her talk, which is safety has always been the critical goal and objective for the railroad, for Metro North and for Long Island for years. In Metro North and Long Island Railroad, as well as some of the rest of the Northeast, is the only part of the United States, with a few small exceptions, that has what automatic speed control called cab signaling. is what we refer to it as, which is a huge upgrade in safety compared to all the remaining railroads in the United States. So we have already invested hundreds of millions of dollars to make that improvement. So from our perspective, what's most important is, and by the way, we are continuing to invest in that, Chuck, as we speak. We have, at the moment, only a few lines that don't have cab signaling. We are investing in the Port Jervis line to put cab signaling in at a cost of over $50 million. Connecticut is putting it in on the Danbury line. So when that's done within the next couple of years, every part of Metro North except the Waterbury branch, which is very, very low volume, will have cab signaling in it. So we are starting from a base of a very safe system. The issue with the extension will actually allow us, if that extension happens, to implement PTC in a effective manner. This is a new technology. There are huge technological as well as financial challenges to implement PTC, and by giving us sufficient time to do it, the product will be significantly better.
I don't doubt you for a moment. All I want to do is to be sure that the public is reassured that while we are asking for an extension, we are at the same time and have indeed anticipated the event to try and provide the optimum safety concerns and installations possible. I have, go ahead.
Just on this issue from...
issue?
Yeah, same issue. On the issue that the collision was, I think, 16 miles per hour at the, where was this? Was it in Argentina? And it struck me as that the damage caused and the problems is severe for such a relatively low mile per hour collision. What collision? What's the speed of the collision that would happen in a cab signaling situation? Is maximum speed if someone violated the safety rules?
Right. I would not want to speculate, but I want to reassure you as well that our standards in America for car construction have crashworthiness standards that I would say exceed those in South America. That is one of the big issues as we go forward in car manufacturing in ensuring that companies can meet the FRA standards for crashworthiness. I want to point out that I anticipate moving forward at pretty much the same pace we are moving forward to install a positive train control. Everyone recognizes there are safety benefits. As Howard pointed out, he's already moving forward in his program. We're moving forward in ours. We have an area that is unsignalized. We're moving forward with track circuits so that we will be able to put PTC in. So to both of your comments, we recognize our commitment to safety. We believe that the legislation has value, but we need the correct amount of time to perfect this type of very complex technology.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is another unfunded mandate, is it not?
That is correct. The federal government nationwide put in, I think, $50 million nationwide, and I'm not sure that they've actually even allocated it.
I think they have. Yeah, I think they have.
A couple of tests.
Yeah, they have,
Yeah.
But I think the cost is in the billions of
Billions
dollars.
and
Yeah,
billions.
so your answer is yes.
It's completely unfunded.
Let me, if I may,
Go ahead,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, to talk to the question of performance on LIRR. There are, as you've heard me note from time to time, 4 or 5 branches that have what seems to me to be a continuing problem in terms of on-time performance. I refer to page 62 and 63 of the book, the Huntington branch with AM peak and PM peak. The PM peak is down at 85.5%. The Montauk branch, which has same kind of numbers. The Port Jefferson branch, 83.8 for PM peak, total peak 87. And then we have trains that are over 15 minutes late, over 3,000 of those. These seem to be the same culprits all the time. And it seems to me that at some point we need to take a good hard look in terms of saying, what is it we can do about this? The riders that come out of these areas are clearly not happy campers, or shouldn't be. What is it we can do, and what is it we are doing?
Excuse me, can I just add to that a little bit? You know, our goal for each, I might as well get it together. You know. And not that I want to sound like like this is deja vu again. I know Commissioner Myrtle and myself have mentioned these same branches, and I looked online. Our dashboard to the public mentions those same branches: Montauk, Greenport, Hicksville, Huntington, Port Jeff, which is really the same. I think the same issues. And we set a goal of 95.1% for each branch, and we're not meeting it for a couple of years now. And I know what you said. I took note of it, and that you're going to stay. I guess you're committed to actually doing that this year. But you know, how are we going to do this? And is it if we have structural problems, is it realistic to set that goal at this point?
Well, we think the goal is realistic. We did make it. You know, in just a few short years ago, we were at 95%. We'd like to get back to that. I recognize that you are pointing out exactly the infrastructure areas where we have difficulty, and it is track capacity. We lack the requisite number of tracks, so that opposing trains have to be carefully scheduled. If one is late, it delays the other one. You know, we have single track operation in Port Jefferson. We have a single track operation east of Huntington. Huntington is a particularly difficult location for us for lack of track capacity and lack of a yard. We are very focused. I mean, one area you didn't mention, but of course it's my, my main line as well. Where we are very hampered by track capacity on the Ronkonkoma branch with only a 90%. And that's our fastest growing area in Suffolk County service, and one of the areas we're focused on increasing track capacity, where we want to go from a single track operation to a double track. So we are trying to make strategic investments where we can improve the infrastructure. We are looking at Huntington because we recognize that that is a problematic area, and we are clearly focused on the Ronkonkoma strategy as well. We would like to see the on-time performance improve, and we are working on it both from an infrastructure capacity issue, what do we need to make the infrastructure better, as well as our train scheduling efforts.
Let me see if I understand this. Until such time as we are able to provide additional trackage for these areas, the likelihood of being able to materially, I emphasize the word materially, improve on-time performance is somewhere between slim and none.
No, I would say that we had some improvement just a few short years ago. We were at 95%. We were very proud of that. That is a high achievement for us. In fact, you can, see it represented in 2008, 7, and 8. We reached 95. That's on page 66. However, to your point, I think you are recognizing that there are infrastructure limitations. One of the ones we haven't talked about, and we are moving forward, we'd like to see this again, capital program improved. I call them the mainline corridor improvements. One of the issues in, recycling trains. So first trains go out, they get pulled from West Side Yard, they go into Penn, they go out, they're on time. Those trains have to come back to be used again for a second round in the PM peak. Those trains are facing opposing traffic coming out of Penn. We don't have the third track from, Penn, really from Jamaica to Hicksville. So trains get bottlenecked as the opposing trains try to come back through. And that is what hampers our on-time performance. And it is, characteristically the same trains over and over again. Jamaica is, of course, in and of itself a difficult operation because of the connecting train service. When we get to East Side Access, we will no longer have connecting train service at Jamaica, and that will allow us to have greater throughput and not hold trains for connections. So I recognize how difficult this is for our customers. We are very keen on getting to East Side Access, and we think that there are works in progress that will improve on-time performance for Long Island Railroad customers. There are efforts we are making now that will improve on-time performance, and of course, they culminate in East Side Access.
What I was trying to get at in this question was to find out, is it infrastructure that is primarily responsible for those lines having the kind of problems of on-time performance? And until that infrastructure situation is corrected, both in terms of the means, the economic means to do it, and the right-of-way to do it, this is a problem that will continue for some considerable period of time.
Yes, I think that's correct, although we would like to see, our own incremental improvements.
One aspect of that, I did have a conversation with the supervisor of the town of Huntington, in which part of your concern is raised, obviously, and explained to him that the issue had come up at numerous board meetings regarding the inadequacy of the infrastructure at Huntington and the effect it has on his residents with regard to on-time performance, number of trains, standees, which we all see from the report and whatever. And I think for the first time, well, I don't want to say it that way, I think he finally is beginning to realize that that is now an issue that the town could be helpful to the railroad on, and has asked me to set up an appointment between Helena and the supervisor to look at possible infrastructure improvements in Huntington, which hopefully at some point could be implemented and lead to some improvement. But I think as more and more residents start taking the train, which is clearly seen from the numbers, it's going to resonate more and more. Whether it will resonate in all parts of Long Island on the infrastructure needs the railroad has, I would say that is very slim. There are a variety of elected officials on Long Island who do not understand the importance of the railroad to the economy of the island. And Ira is shaking his head, yes, we've been through that in many occasions, and we can start that discussion and end that discussion with third track. But leave that aside for the moment. I'm hopeful that at least here is one elected official who has recognized the possibility and at least wants to have a conversation. So we will go from there.
I think that's terrific, and you ought to be congratulated.
We'll see what happens.
Helena's to be encouraged. But let me add that perhaps the officials in Long Beach, where they have 78 standees, in Port Washington with 33 and 65, I mean, the same culprits every time. Port Washington branch, Port Jefferson branch, Long Beach, Huntington, Far Rockaway. Those folks have got to figure out whether or not they really want to have their electorate suffer this way.
And that's an option. Alina, I would ask if perhaps in the next month or 2 months, if you could have your staff put together a little report on what may be possible, both short-term and longer-term, on these issues for the board. I think that would be very helpful. Certainly. Because there obviously are maybe short-term things we can do, and then longer-term things that we need the help of elected officials in those communities to implement. I think that would be helpful for everyone. Thank you, Chuck.
I would say, Mitch, also in that effort, if the problems themselves were laid out in some if you will, graphic details.
Right.
The bottlenecks are shown, through some sort of an overhead or whatever that brings it front and center, because it's complicated, but it needs to be solved.
And part of it is the nature of the system. If you have a connecting train and the first train is late, you now automatically have 2 trains late because the second train can't leave until the first one gets there, and vice and over and over and over. So that's not an excuse; it's just a fact, and you have to try to see what you can do to try to help eliminate that. One last thing.
But it's just we set this goal of 95.1% for every branch. And granted, for the system, we met it for 2 years, I think. I don't know if every branch met it for that 2-year period. But, I suggest this in the past. I wonder if we should look at this and say, well, we don't have the flexibility and infrastructure to meet that goal on a certain branch. And in that way, that might, I know there's a hesitation to do that, to say, well, we're going to provide not as good service on one branch as the other, people get upset. But maybe if the real reason is that we don't have the flexibility and there's a lot of constraints caused, well, whatever reason they're caused by, whether it's financial difficulties or some difficulty with local communities that don't understand, then maybe that would inch people along. Because right now we're setting goals, we're having difficulty meeting them, and it's the railroad's fault. You can't say we set a goal 95.1% of this branch and we can't get there because of something else. We set the goal. So
Right.
I believe you. I know Mike's now in charge, so I know he's done a miracle job on the diesel fleet. In particular, that was the hardest thing to get that MDBF up. So I'm looking forward to a year from now sitting here and saying, well, you guys were right. You got the 95.1% on every branch, and congratulations. But until then,
Well, I think laying it out in more detail
that would be
very
good to know
helpful.
the constraints.
Very
yes.
helpful. Okay. Yes, sir. Put your microphone back on, Chuck.
Once that graphic is prepared in a form that is satisfactory to you, may I suggest that a copy of it be sent to each of the elected officials?
Yes.
So that they know we're trying. We need your help to
Yes.
achieve.
Will do. Thank you for the idea. Okay, Metro North. Oh, I'm sorry, did you have something else? I'm sorry.
Yes, Mitch, just
Go
one
ahead.
quick thing.
Go ahead.
On page 71, in the strategic investments and planning studies section, there's mention in the second...
We actually aren't up to that yet.
We'll get to that.
Right,
Okay.
I'm
We'll get to
sorry.
that in
Okay.
information items.
Right.
Great.
Okay. Howard, Metro North?
Okay, good morning, everybody. So I have a couple of items I'd like to highlight in my report this month, starting with our performance in January. On-time performance in January was 98.9%, which we're very pleased with. It's extremely high level of performance. It was the third best month in the history of Metro North, the best January we've ever had in terms of reliability. Year-to-date, we've continued. We're at about 98.8%. And part of that, there was an excellent consistency of service. We operated at or above 99% 21 of the 31 days during the month of January. And just to highlight that for a minute in terms of reasons, there are really a couple of them. One is the infrastructure investment, particularly in the M8s, which was extremely helpful on the New Haven line. Secondly, we had some good weather in January, clearly, compared to what we previously had that helped. And then thirdly, it is just the ongoing focus of Bob Lieblong and the rest of the Metro North staff in making sure the trains run on time. And those three things together have given us that terrific performance. Within that, the other part I do want to mention for a minute is the New Haven line. Since the end of October, you may recall last year we sat here and we talked about all the disasters on the New Haven line. At the end of October, we were running 95.2% on the New Haven line. Since then, we've been running between 98 and 99% on the New Haven line. In January, it was at 98.9%. And again, that's a reflection of having the new M8 cars. The other thing it's a reflection of is that in the end of the year, we, as part of the catenary replacement project done by the state of Connecticut, we did not allow them to take 2 tracks out of service during the winter months when their productivity was extremely low. So we had 3 tracks in a critical segment of the railroad as opposed to 2. Unfortunately, that job is not done yet. We're glad that it's progressing, but starting in March, we will be giving them back the 2nd track for work, and we're back to having a 2-track bottleneck on the New Haven line. And while we will definitely, and we anticipate doing better than we did last year, that will affect the on-time performance on the New Haven line without a doubt. The other thing I want to highlight on the New Haven line is that the consist compliance now is operating at about 99%. You may recall last year when we had our special schedule and we had short trains, it was about 89%. So again, the M8's coming. We're now reaping the benefits of having sufficient number of cars for New Haven line. Also, since we met last time, we've had 3 more 100% days, all on weekends. That gives us now 4 in 2012, 5 in the past 2 months when all our trains arrived on time. And finally, west of Hudson, we've operated very well. It's operating Port Pascack Valley Line over 98%, Port Jervis Line over 96%. In terms of ridership, our ridership last year, as we talked about, was up to 82 million, our second highest ever. Similar to what Helena is describing, we are seeing surging ridership in the month of January. Ridership was up 5.5%, well over budget. Our commutation was up 2.7%, our non-commutation was up 10%. And even if we account for the fact that last January was lower because of the bad weather and all the storms we had, ridership is still growing between 3 and 4%. So that's an extremely healthy growth. With regard to our finances, just a couple of highlights that we ended well in 2011. Our revenues came in above budget. Expenses came in below budget. Fair operating ratio is 68.7%, which was 4% favorable to budget. I will mention that in the report, one of the things to highlight, I just do want to mention, is our overtime budget. We had a very aggressive budget of $53 million. We did not make that. Our overtime was about $60 million. This was due to all the storms we dealt with last year. You will recall we had huge events all winter. Then we had the storms in both August and again in October. That took a big hit on the overtime. We do have a number of initiatives underway to control overtime. Just to highlight a couple of them for you, which we're continuing. One is we continue to work within our mechanical department to smooth out vacations so that will not drive overtime. We have a number of different agreements we've reached with our unions where we've been able to add certain positions and night positions, things like that allow us to reduce overtime by adding people through special agreements. And finally, we are aggressively working to fill vacant positions. That is a real challenge for us, both to catch up with the backlog of vacant positions as well as to keep up with a continuing high level of retirement as people reach 2012 and 2013, which is 30 years, and they have the opportunity to retire with full pensions. In addition, what I do want to highlight is a couple of other events that will be forthcoming before the next meeting. One is we have a significant plan in place for St. Patrick's Day. That's on a Saturday this year. That's a very difficult day on Metro North for both us and for the police who work hand in glove with us. We'll be running a lot of extra service. We will be doing special gate collection procedures at key stations, including New Haven, Beacon, and Poughkeepsie. There'll be a very aggressive enforcement of the alcohol policies on that day, and no alcohol will be allowed on the trains. And so we have, and hopefully we will have a plan that we will be able to get everybody to and from the parade as effectively as possible. But it is a very, very complicated day. It's a very difficult day for us on Metro North. But we're working with the police, and I think we have a good plan in place. Second thing is I want to mention that the Brunel Award exhibition, which will be talking about the Brunel Award as well as Metro North, how we won the jury award, and about the history of Metro North. That exhibition will be opening in Vanderbilt Hall in Grand Central on the 19th of March. And then on the 21st, I will be giving a talk. We'll be inviting a number of people, and everyone here will be invited, about talking about Metro North and the transformation of Metro North to be able to receive that award. So that'll be on the 21st. This is an exhibit, by the way, being done by the Transit Museum in conjunction with Metro North and a Watford group who gives out the Brunel Award. So it's about a 2 or 3 week exhibit in Grand Central, and we think it's really important highlighting the history of Metro North and how we've gotten to where we were to receive this award. Finally, work on the Grand Central Centennial. Next year, Grand Central will be 100 years old, so that work has begun in earnest. We have set up and invited a number of civic, cultural, and business leaders to join the Centennial Committee. A number of them have accepted. We've also have an honorary committee, which will be under the Chairman Joe Loda's leadership. That has been set up, is in the process of being set up, and as the months go on, I will be laying out to the board members in more detail what the different events are tied to the Centennial, because there are a number of them. The highlight will be a dinner in February next year when the terminal will be actually 100 years old. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Chuck?
Howard, you've done a rather spectacular job in terms of both ridership and performance. I have a very narrow question. Some of the West Hudson numbers for last year were not great because of the floods and other natural circumstances. The question is, have you found that that ridership is coming back? And if so, what have you done that has encouraged them to come back?
Okay, so we're really focused on the Port Jervis line because the Pascack Valley line ridership, I think, has been fairly stable. I will ask Bob McClagger to answer exactly where we are in that. We did have a number of campaigns, Chuck, to advertising campaigns, publicity campaigns to try to get people back. I asked Bob to give the exact numbers. Bob?
There may be a lesson in it for us in what has been achieved.
Right.
Immediately after the resumption of service, we saw about three-quarters of the ridership on the Port Jervis came back immediately. Those numbers have been trending up. We had expected it probably to take 6 months for us to reach stability in terms of getting back to what we would hope to be normal ridership. And we only have a couple months' worth of data because there was a lag with NJT in terms of their financial system deal and produce data for us. But we are seeing positive trending back towards where we were before the hurricane hit in late August, and that's going to be a long-term process.
Is there any particular activity that you have undertaken to try and stimulate that return?
We have been marketing the service, and certainly when it came back, we marketed the return of service, and since then, it's pretty much been just the natural events, and we got a lot of obviously very positive press around the whole restoration of the line and resumption of service. So that's really what we've been relying on over there.
Susan?
I'd like to add a little bit to that. Throughout the reconstruction of the line, there was a very strong presence of Metro-North, Howard himself, board members, and even our chairman in Orange County. There were many opportunities to speak to the press so that people were kept very well informed as to what was going on. The people saw what happened to that line, and most everyone is astonished that it came back as fast as it did. So I think a lot of the reason people came back so quickly was because Metro-North kept everyone involved with the progress, and people really came to feel that that line was something special and that what was happening there was something special. So I think that helped us a great deal. And I do see, because I'm on the trains, that they're starting to get crowded again, which I love to see.
Well, isn't there a lesson in that if we involve the community officials, if we involve the elected officials and the like, and make them part of the solution and part of the problem, they may be able to help us achieve a result?
Yes.
I congratulate you on what you've achieved there, Howard.
Yes, I think that's
Thank
a good
you.
point. I just wanted to take one moment I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of the entire board, to congratulate both Helena on the mean distance between failure report and Howard on the time operating report. Those are tremendous achievements. All of our employees should feel very proud of both of them, and you can see that by the January ridership numbers. How much they've gone up on both systems is, I think, an absolute testament to the tremendous work both the management and the employees have done on both railroads in regard to these issues. There are some things we can't control, some things we can, and those things we can control. And I think both railroads have done a great job on that, and the January ridership numbers show that.
Thank you.
Michael, MTA Capital Construction.
Okay, the East Side Access, I'm going to be brief. We have a more detailed presentation of the CPOC today, so I will try not to be repetitive. In Manhattan, the Manhattan Tunneling Contractor has actually started to make extremely good progress. They began to drill and blast the eastbound cavern, as well as now are completing the westbound cavern, the remaining bench and pillars, both ahead of our expected timetable. The concrete work in the tail track has been completed, and they met the first milestone for the 55th Street tunneling effort that was added to their contract. The contractor on the 50th Street facilities completed the excavation of the ventilation shaft, and at 245 Park Avenue, that will be an entrance at the beginning only for Metro North. The work has largely been completed, and we're now in the testing phase. In Queens, the Yardley Tunnel, the longest of the tunnels, the tunnel drive is being completed. We are now in the process of repositioning one of the machines in the Q-tip, and we'll start the Tunnel D drive in about 2 weeks. So, and then immediately after that, or probably about a month and change after that, we're going to start the BC tunnel. So we expect to finish all our tunneling in Queens this year. Excavation under Northern Boulevard has yet to start. We're still in the testing of the freezing of the ground, so we look forward to start that soon. Amtrak has installed several switches in support of our work, and additional work, including the erection of catenary poles, continues. By the end of the month, we expect to receive bids for the 55th Street ventilation facility, and as well as we'll receive the proposal for the RFP procurement of the system package number 1. That's about it for East Side Access. Any questions?
Any questions from anyone? Okay. Police report. Chief?
Thank you. Good morning. Unfortunately, last month we were up as well, 40 versus 24, plus 16, 67% increase. Positive note, arrests were up 104 versus 69 compared to 2011. That's a 34% increase. Long Island Railroad was even with robberies, 3 compared to 3 last year. However, they were up in larcenies, 13 compared to 7. Metro North was even with robberies, 1 compared to 1, but they were also up in larcenies, 15 compared to 8. Of the 4 robberies between Metro North and Long Island Railroad, 2 of those were cell phone related. We had 1 arrest out of the 4 incidents. Total larcenies between the 2 agencies was 28. 7 of those, or 25%, were electronic devices. We did make 7 arrests in those 28 incidents. I just want to highlight 1 arrest. We had an incident on the 26th of January on the 755 train at a Port Washington branch. It was an iPhone theft on the train. We had an excellent witness in a conductor. He saw the individual when he ran off the train. We responded, took the report, took a great statement from him. A few days later, the same conductor saw the individual on a 1049 train out of Port Washington. He called the detective and the MTA police immediately. We responded. The individual had already left the train, but we picked him up a block away. That individual confessed to 3 crimes, 1 last year and 2 this year. It was just an excellent coordination between the UTU, the Long Island Railroad, and the MTA PD, and it just had a real positive result. In regards to the thefts, we're continuing to hand out the flyers, the Safeguard Your Stuff flyers. We're handing those out. We are targeting the trains and stations where there's a prevalence of the thefts, and as well as the agencies are making the announcements to safeguard your stuff, your electronic devices. Just an update. On the smoking ban, we have issued 9 summonses since the ban went into effect throughout the system for the smoking ban. And as Howard mentioned, we're gearing up for St. Patrick's Day, both on the Metro North and on the Long Island Railroad. It's a weekend this year, so I think we should do all right.
Chief, if I may, have you gotten any sense at all as to whether these iPhone thefts and other crimes are being committed predominantly by younger people, people under 21, as contrasted with people over 21? Is there a pattern?
No. The age range is 15 to 35. Like the individual we arrested was in his mid-20s. And it's very crimes of opportunity. That individual stole who stole the iPhone on the 26th. He goes 2 blocks away, sells it to a food vendor who just buys it for $50. We using the iCloud, we arrested that individual in 45 minutes. He just bought it because it was cheap. This is a legitimate individual who just decided to buy it. The individual who stole it, he was riding the trains looking, just to steal an iPhone, and he was looking for that opportunity. He had committed other crimes in various precincts within the city as well.
Anyone else? Okay, let's move to information items. Alina.
Yes, we have no action items this month. We have 4 information items. They start on page 30. They include the February timetable change, the final results of the adopted budget and financial plan for 2012, and the strategic investments and planning study, which we provide to the committee. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions on any of those items?
I do. On the strategic investments study. Where is it? The study of Penn Station? You mentioned something. Where's that? Anyway, there's the study of Penn Station jointly with Amtrak and New Jersey Transit.
That's the Penn Vision study. That's correct.
Yes. When will that be completed?
By year end.
By this year. Okay.
Yep. We just began our kickoff meeting with ACOM, the selected consultant. They met with me. They'll be meeting with NJT and with Amtrak.
Jim?
Now in time.
Yes, now it's time.
On page 71, there is mention in the second paragraph of the installation of GPS devices on every train. I wonder if you could just talk for a second about that, and I'll comment ahead of that by just saying that the comment that it was going to be that we would have that initiated and completed by year end, I thought was noteworthy. Being able to move a program that sounds pretty big with that degree of alacrity is noteworthy and need to be congratulated.
Thank you very much. We think that the GPS strategy is extremely important to us in managing our train operation and making on-time performance improvements. We do have the M7s equipped with GPS. We've enhanced that. We are working and testing portable solutions for the M3 and the diesel equipment. Those tests are ongoing, and we believe that we're seeing very good results, and our plan is to have installation by the end of the year. With that additional information, the timing point, improvements we've made and the GPS combined will enable us to better track our equipment.
Anyone else on any of those items? Yes, sir.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure, go ahead.
On page 72, the reference to Penn, that retail situation down there, I think most of us can agree is something of a mess, putting it politely. Is the study going to take a hard look as to whether or not that entire retail situation can be reconfigured, and that mess that is called Penn Station can be reconstituted?
Yes.
It looks something like Grand Central.
That is, well, we would love that, but Grand Central is unique and very beautiful and special. Penn has its own challenges, but one of the elements in the Penn Vision study is to look at what improvements can be made in the retail food section of Penn. You know what, and again, I'm just to refresh everybody's memory, I think a lot of people were holding back on Penn because they thought ARC would change the dynamics of Penn and it would open up different space. With the cancellation of the ARC project, the three carriers got together and said, look, we've got to go forward, we've got to make improvements now, we can no longer wait for, what ARC might have done, and clearly the retail and the pedestrian flow are key elements of what we're trying to develop a vision for.
Okay. Howard?
Okay.
Yeah, Lenny, you're finished?
Yep, that's good.
Howard?
Yes, we too have, we have three items, the financial plan and the budget, the operating results, and the strategic investment study. I do want to just highlight a couple of items on that for you, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions. Key item number one is the M8 cars. So as of today, as you know, we've ordered 405 cars. As of today, we have 90 are delivered, 78 are accepted, and we have about a quarter of our weekday service, and about a quarter of our weekday service is now M8s. 40% of our Saturday service and 30% of our Sunday service are M8s. So we're marching down the path of using them, and in the results I explained earlier highlight the impact the M8s have had. Second thing I want to mention is just the investments in stations and parking. About 2 weeks ago, we had an event. Many of the board members were there, along with Chairman Loda, where we opened up a major new facility in Cortland. We are also continuing to work on other stations, Poughkeepsie, Fordham, Rye, Portchester, and a number of New Haven Line stations will get improvements as well. And then the third thing I want to highlight is our communication improvements. We are proceeding to expand the real-time information available to stations, as well as improve what people get online. So we have a number of initiatives underway. One of the ones you'll see within the next month is that we will now have real-time LCD monitors at 3 new stations. Will be up by the end of March. Those are Tarrytown, North White Plains, and New Rochelle. For those, and I guess John Ballant's not here today, but for those who try to get on to North White Plains, you know the frustration of not knowing what platform the train is coming in on. We'll now have that up so people can see that. Furthermore, we are retrofitting 3 other systems at Croton, Harmon, Poughkeepsie, and Stamford, so they'll have real-time information. So the information that the customers get will be what's actually happening, not schedule-driven, which causes all kinds of problems when the train shows up a minute after the schedule says it's supposed to be there and it's dropped from the board and people don't know what's happened. So within a month, we should have some significant improvement there. We're in the middle of putting in a whole new control system to replace the old PA. That'll be later this year. We've set up our new customer communication center at North White Plains. We have one place where it controls all customer communications by all means. That's up and functioning. And we are, too, looking at how best to expand real-time information across the system. We have a business case study we're looking at right now that'll tell us what's the most effective strategy to get that information out to our customers. And so that's something that's also a high priority to us. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on Metro North?
Yeah, Howard, on that last point, I think the language on page 149 that relates to that is that a business case has to be made for this. And it strikes me, at least, that it's hard to put a price tag on the I shouldn't say a price tag, put a value on the benefit that customers receive to be used to, in a sense, offset the cost that it takes. It's a cost of doing business, and I would hope that that this bar is not particularly high, because it's very important from a customer standpoint to get communication standards up to where they belong.
Yeah, Jim, I think the goal is clearly we want to get real-time information to our customers. As part of the overall efforts, let you just step back a minute, that we started a year or two ago, we go through a very rigorous process before we can invest our capital monies, driven through the MTA process. And so we have to make sure that we are satisfying that the way we are doing this is the most effective and efficient way. The variety of ways of providing real-time information, we're testing different ones right now, and so we have to do all of that to make certain that we are spending our money in the most effective way to get our goal, which is to let people know what's really happening.
Jim, okay? Okay. Chuck?
Quick question, Howard, on the events that happened on the Port Jervis line. Is insurance being pursued?
Yes, Chuck, we are pursuing, as part of, the MTA is actually doing the pursuit of the insurance. We are working very closely with them. They are doing it on behalf of the entire MTA. The Port Jervis experience is clearly a major portion of what happened to the MTA system, but that's being done by the MTA, and we're working with them.
Okay. Okay, procurements. Melina? Start with the railroad.
Thank you very much. There is one Long Island Railroad procurement in this month's package. It's a competitive joint procurement led by the Long Island Railroad, totaling $3.84 million. I want to note that this is a procurement that covers New York City Transit, Metro North Railroad, Long Island Railroad, and it is requests that you approve a contract to award 6 separate miscellaneous service contracts for concrete testing and inspection services. And these services include both the field testing and the at the plant batch testing. Over the last few years, the concrete testing industry has had a number of incidents that have garnered many headlines, and I'm sure this board is aware of those. The major testing company in the New York area was investigated by the Manhattan DA's office for racketeering and fraud charges. The charges did result in a conviction of the firm's president. As a result of these investigations and convictions, we have done a very extensive background check on all the firms submitting bids to do concrete testing throughout any of our agencies. And we reviewed the prospective vendors with the MTA IG's office. Each awardee for the requested approval was vetted by that IG office, and we thank Barry Kluger's staff for his assistance. And we are satisfied with the companies that have been selected. As you note in the staff summary, the same company at the same agency cannot do both field and inspection services at the plant. So we request a vote on this competitive procurement.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, 1 second. Motion to approve? Second? Now, Charles.
By the way, there's nothing new about investigations in the concrete industry. They were there in the 60s. They were doing the same game in the 70s. It's endemic. I have 2 questions, or really 3, about this. I note that the solicitation, referring to page 170, was advertised for 1 day each in the New York State Contract Reporter and on June 10 or June 16 in the New York Post. I don't think too many concrete people read the Post, although I have a deep affection for it. I'm not sure that that's necessarily the right place for that kind of an advertisement. But my point is that 2 days of advertising in these journals, I wonder whether that gets the message out as contrasted with direct solicitation.
Well, in a sealed competitive bid situation, we really do rely on the New York State Contract Reporter as the key area where everyone is looking for these. Dennis, any comments on solicitation?
Well, they do run longer. The date in the sales summary is the date that they first appeared.
It's not just 2 days. Okay. The second part of it was Twin afforded an opportunity to comply. Its bid was $1 million less than the successful bidders.
Yes, they were. However, they were not able to provide the required documentation that was part and parcel of the bid.
When you say documentation, is this paperwork or substance?
Paperwork. However, there were other issues beyond responsibility, besides responsibility with this particular bid. They were found non-responsive.
The reason it stands out is it's $1 million difference. You're comfortable that the non-responsiveness was afforded every opportunity to become responsive, and that they just couldn't cut the mustard, so to speak.
Had they been able to provide and prove that they had been responsive, they would have been responsible.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That's it for Long Island?
That's correct, no ratifications.
Howard?
Okay, so we have two competitive procurements, one ratification. The first one is a two-year miscellaneous service contract to Walco for gearbox shells. This is what we need to maintain our M3, M2, 4, and 6 fleets. They were the lowest responsible bidder. The second is a 5-year contract joint with the Long Island Railroad that Metro-North led for at-plant inspection services of railroad ties and timber for our Long Island Railroad and Metro-North projects. And this was an award to CR Quality Services. And I asked the approval for those two bids.
Can I ask one question on that?
Yes, go ahead.
Why 5 years? Is that in our interest, or is that something that you had to do?
Anthony?
It's just based on the request by the union department. No particular. Sometimes in the past has been 3 years, 5 years.
Have you weighed the advantages and disadvantages of the fluctuations in price maybe cutting in your favor as against?
We've utilized strategic procurement initiatives in that particular procurement, whether it would be 3 or 5 or something less. We gauge that the price, that index hasn't moved that much, so 5 years is a pretty decent limit for that particular service. Others like steel, we would have a much shorter period.
Okay.
Any other questions? Motion to approve? Second? All in favor?
Okay, and we have one ratification, which was an emergency purchase for a generator for one of our BL-14 locomotives. We need, these locomotives are actually assigned to the East Side Access Project, and the project needed the locomotive to be available, so I would ask that ratification for that piece of equipment that was required for about $28,000.
Any questions on that item? Motion to approve? Second? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Capital construction?
Capital Construction has 3 procurement items this month, all of which are competitive and total $1.37 million. The items begin on page 173. The first item requests the board adopt a resolution to allow the utilization of a request for proposal method to procure signal equipment for the East Side Access Project. The second item is a modification to the East Side Access Plaza substation contract for temporary support of a conveyor system totaling $713,342. And the third item is a modification to the Northern Boulevard crossing contract for East Side Access for utility relocation, totaling $659,000.
Any questions on any of those items?
Motion
Jim?
made.
No questions? Motion second. All in favor? Okay. You see in the book the operating reports for both Long Island Railroad and Metro North. Are there any questions on any of the operating reports?
Yes,
Ira,
I
go
do want to note that the categories of delay, that across the board there's been a decrease for January, and that's been consistent, I think, going for the Long Island Railroad. So I mean, it's not just the main. I know we talked about MDBF, but what's really important here is also engineering, transportation, And even, dare I say, Amtrak has caused less delays for the Long Island Railroad. So I think it's a team effort on the railroad.
How dare you say that?
I play risky. Anyway, I do have a question. I noticed this is the second month in a row there's been a rules violation, and I know we had an update last year on that, and the situation with rules violations. I wonder if we could have another report about how many there are and how severe. There was one at J Interlocking on January 16th. I just noticed that there still seems to be a number of them.
And we will provide you with some material on that. That is human error, and, unfortunately, that is one of the issues that we always remain concerned about.
The last question I had was on employee injuries and even passenger injuries. Although on our dashboard that we show to the public, we show that we're not meeting goal. We did not meet goal for 2011. I just wonder what's being done to reduce the lost time and the passenger injuries.
That's an issue that we have been analyzing. Of course, some of the customer issues were related to the winter conditions last year, which did see an increase in customer incidents. With regard to employees, it is something that we are watching closely internally. What are the programs we need to roll out to strengthen workplace safety? We're also measuring the lost time that goes with the injuries.
Did we get to the financial report yet, or?
No, go ahead. You can do it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We all noted that the ridership is up and actually passenger revenue is up, and I know I've been mentioning this almost every month, and it maybe is a larger issue, but our chair, Long Island Community Council, Mark Epstein, did write a letter several months ago regarding the ticket refund policy and changing that, and I think we want to pursue that, and he is, to me, he'd appreciate an answer on that, and I guess that's in a way directed to the larger to the board, but I don't know if you want to address it, you certainly can.
Well, it is an area that I think we continue to get correspondence about. I'm presuming Metro North does as well. We have two issues. One is the ticket validity period, and the second is the refund processing fee. Both get equal amount of attention from our customers. And they're dissatisfied with the ticket validity period especially. I know that these are issues that the MTA Fair Policy Group is working on. I think both Mark and Kim are members of that Fair Policy team with the MTA. We are bringing forward, the concerns that our customers have expressed. And I believe that the MTA, will look at those issues conscientiously as we move forward on fair policy.
Thank you.
I know I've been raising them at finance every month because it's time we do something, and I think now is the appropriate time to make those changes that will improve the ability of our riders to use the system in a forthright manner. And I think it's now time to do that. We will raise it again at finance this morning.
Could we perhaps put this down on the agenda for next month's meeting for a report?
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you. Jim?
This relates to operations, but it is found actually in the earlier report on strategic investments, and that is, I just would note with great satisfaction the M3 Performance Improvement Program. It's noted in that report that for $27.8 million, we increased the MDBF on those cars to what I think is an astounding 256,000 miles, up 330%. And it sounds like a real win for the railroad.
Thanks, Jim. And you're right. It was a terrific program that was run by Bob and John Kessich in our mechanical department. The program has not only done what you described in terms of improving reliability. We've just about completed the interior improvements as well, so that the customers see a much, much better car. Yep. And that they'll be done within a matter of a few months. And so the fleet is operating at a very high level for us, because it's still a critical part of our Harlem Hudson electric fleet.
Anybody else? I will note that I believe there is no coincidence, I'm sure there is no coincidence, that the first time we ended early is the first meeting Nancy is not here. I understand that. We do miss her expertise and enthusiasm in letting us know when we get close to 10 o'clock. We miss her very much. This is the first meeting I have been to as a member of this committee without Nancy here, and we miss her good nature and her timekeeping as much as anything else. With that, motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor, aye. See you next month.